In 1977, a small-town welder from Iowa did the impossible. He took on John Deere, one of America's most powerful corporations, and won. This is the story of Jon Kinzenbaw, a man who started with a $15 welding job and ended up reshaping the entire agricultural equipment industry. Long before today's legal battles over farmers' right to repair, Kinzenbaw fought a similar war. His victory wasn't just personal, it protected innovation, competition, and the spirit of the American farmer. Humble beginnings. Jon Kinzenbaw never planned on challenging a corporate giant. In 1965, at just 21 years old, he opened a tiny welding shop in Ladora, Iowa. He borrowed $3,500, bought tools, and finished his first job, a $15 loader repair, on December 10th. "We opened the doors and never had a day we didn't have something to do," he said later. Farmers brought in anything that broke: wagons, engines, tractor parts. Kinzenbaw fixed everything, but more importantly, he improved everything. In 1968, he found his first real niche, repowering John Deere tractors. He swapped their 130 horsepower engines with 300 horsepower Detroit diesel engines. Farmers loved it. Suddenly their plows could fly. Soon he was building custom equipment for a local fertilizer dealer: wide toolbars, fertilizer wagons, and heavy-duty attachments. In 1971, he introduced a true invention: the two-wheeled grain cart. Large augers, high flotation tires, fast unloading, features that later became standard across the industry. By the mid-1970s, Kinze Manufacturing was expanding steadily, but everything changed when a farmer from southern Iowa made a passing comment that sparked one of the greatest innovations in planter design. The invention that changed everything? The farmer said, "Someone needs to figure out how to fold a big planter horizontally." At that time, 12-row planters folded upward, seeds spilled, insecticide leaked, and moving them on roads was dangerous. Anything bigger than 12 rows became nearly impossible to transport. Kinzenbaw realized the answer: a planter that folded horizontally behind the tractor, narrow enough for road travel and massive enough for large fields. He created the rear fold planter. Farmers simply released two latches and drove forward. The wings folded back smoothly. No spillage, no climbing around, no wasted time. But the planter needed high-quality row units to work, and the best in the world were the John Deere Max Emerge units. So Kinze bought them and mounted them onto his folding toolbar. The combination was a huge success. Dealers loved it because Kinze could ship the entire machine fully assembled. A 60-foot planter could be delivered on a single truck. Farmers loved it because it worked. Orders skyrocketed from 500 row units the first season to thousands by 1978. But success brought attention from the very company whose parts he relied on. John Deere noticed, and they didn't like what they saw. The giant strikes back. At first, Deere acted friendly. They offered a partnership to produce Kinzenbaw's folding toolbar under their brand, but at a price that would leave him with almost no profits. He refused. Everything changed. In early 1977, Kinzenbaw discovered that Deere was quietly cutting off his supply of row units. A dealer's invoice revealed a handwritten note from Deere headquarters: "Cancel the order for 25 and do not reorder." Deere began canceling shipments. They claimed shortages. They even told him there would be no row units available for 1980. Meanwhile, Deere launched their own front-folding planter and forced every dealer to buy 2 of them, equipped with Max Emerge units. Deere kept roughly 5,000 row units for their own machines while giving Kinze none. Kinzenbaw had 150 planter frames sitting in his shop, missing only row units. His business was being suffocated. Most small manufacturers would have given up, but John wasn't most people. Going to war, he met with his attorney, Jim Hill, and learned that Deere's actions violated federal antitrust laws, specifically the Sherman Act and the Clayton Act. Deere was illegally tying their patented row units to their own toolbars. So in 1977, Jon Kinzenbaw filed a federal antitrust lawsuit against John Deere. Deere quickly agreed to a settlement, allowing him to buy row units at full retail price. Not ideal, but it kept his business alive. But Deere didn't honor the spirit of the agreement. Shortages continued. More orders were cancelled. Deere still held a stranglehold on the market. So in 1980, Kinzenbaw filed a second lawsuit for breach of the settlement and ongoing anti-competitive behavior. At the same time, John made a bold decision. He would develop his own row units. Deere responded by suing him for patent infringement. Now everything came down to a showdown in court. The trial? On April 1, 1983, John took the stand. He needed to convince the jury, ordinary citizens, that Deere's behavior wasn't just unfair but illegal. He demonstrated the planter's folding mechanism using a quarter-scale model right there on the courtroom floor. He explained how farmers saved time, fuel, and labor with his design. The jury saw how his invention changed planting forever. His attorney laid out the economics. The row units cost about $12,000 per planter. The folding toolbar, the heart of the innovation, cost $8,000. Farmers weren't buying the planter because of Deere's row units. They were buying it because of Kinzenbaw's folding system. Meanwhile, evidence showed Deere had used its market power to create artificial shortages. And during the patent phase of the trial, Kinzenbaw's team argued Deere's patents weren't valid to begin with. They were based on earlier ideas that weren't originally Deere's. After hearing weeks of testimony, the jury began deliberating. The verdict? The jury ruled overwhelmingly against John Deere. Deere had engaged in illegal tying arrangements. Deere had violated antitrust laws. Deere had breached the settlement agreement. And most importantly, Deere's patents were invalid. John Deere appealed, but the verdict was upheld. Jon Kinzenbaw had defeated one of the most powerful corporations in America. His attorney later wrote, "He stood alone against Goliath, and when Goliath fell, it fell with a thud." The aftermath? The victory changed everything. No longer dependent on Deere, Kinze Manufacturing grew into a major independent agricultural equipment manufacturer. Today they employ over 900 people and operate more than 1 million square feet of manufacturing space. They continued innovating. Lift and rotate folding planter. 2011. Autonomous grain cart. 2013. Electric drive planter meters. John's daughter, Susie Kinzenbaw now leads the company, carrying his legacy of innovation and independence into the future. But Kinzenbaw's triumph did more than protect his company. It protected competition. It sent a message that even the biggest corporations can be challenged. It proved that farmers deserve choices and that innovation thrives when small inventors aren't crushed by giants. The modern parallel, the right to repair. Today, John Deere is once again facing legal scrutiny, this time for restricting farmers from repairing their own equipment. In January 2025, the FTC and multiple states filed a federal lawsuit accusing Deere of creating a repair monopoly by limiting access to diagnostic software like Service Advisor. Farmers can buy a limited version, but not the full one needed for major repairs. A 2023 report estimated $3 billion lost annually due to tractor downtime, $1.2 billion in excess repair costs due to dealer restrictions. Just like in Kinzenbaw's era, Deere is accused of controlling a critical component, this time digital tools instead of physical row units. Several states, including Massachusetts and Colorado, have passed right-to-repair laws. Canada recently allowed farmers to bypass digital locks for repair. But according to the current lawsuit, Deere still isn't providing the full diagnostic tools they promised. A judge recently allowed the case to move forward, ruling that the complaint plausibly alleges Deere is charging inflated repair prices and harming farmers who have no alternatives. The pattern is familiar. Control the parts, control the repairs, control the market. The bigger picture, the Jon Kinzenbaw story and the right-to-repair movement raises an important question. Who really owns the equipment you buy? If you can't repair it, if you can't modify it, if you must go through the manufacturer for every service, do you truly own it? Kinzenbaw's victory reminds us why competition matters. Innovation happens when everyone has a fair chance to build, repair, and improve technology. When big companies lock down repairs or try to crush competitors, they slow down progress for everyone, including farmers. What Jon Kinzenbaw accomplished wasn't just a legal victory. It was a win for innovation, independent businesses, and farmers everywhere. And today, the same fight continues with right to repair. Do you think farmers should have full access to repair their own equipment? Should companies be allowed to lock down their products? Tell me in the comments, and if you found this story inspiring, hit the like button and subscribe for more incredible true stories.